On the Business Courier front page centerpiece this week, in just over 6 weeks, Major League Baseball's All-Star Game will be played here in Cincinnati. It's expected to draw more than 11 million TV viewers and a lot of national airtime devoted to showing off the host city. So in this week's centerpiece, the Business Courier asks, is the All-Star Game really that big of a deal? The answer? Well, actually, yes. With the renaissance in our urban core, from the banks through the central business district to over the Rhine, there's never been a better time to show off Cincinnati to the rest of the world. So what kind of payoff should the city expect? That's the question people like Mayor John Cranley and Reds owner Bob Castellini are asking. The Business Courier turned to the mayors of 3 cities, Minneapolis, Kansas City, and St. Louis, to ask how hosting the All-Star Game impacted their hometowns. Reporter Steve Watkins asked the questions for the Business Courier and joins Business Watch producer Kelly Leon in the studio with what he found.
Thanks, and Steve, thanks for being here.
Sure.
So July 14th, it's right around the corner.
Yeah, it's coming up.
So what did these mayors have to say?
Well, they had a lot of interesting comments that really do apply to Cincinnati. Kansas City's mayor, for example, talked about how it felt like it gave them a seat at the table for some bigger events coming up. In fact, they ended up using it as sort of a launching pad to bid on the Republican National Convention. So they felt like it gave them self-confidence to pull off the All-Star Game and make it work on a big national and international stage. And so they've done other big things. Actually, they had the World Series there last year too. St. Louis did public artworks, mini arches around, much like our pigs that we have around downtown.
Yeah.
And they stay up to this day. That was back in '09, so that's made a lasting impact. And in Minneapolis, they got ready for the hosting the Super Bowl, which is coming up in a few years, and the Final Four. So they've got some really major events coming up, and they talked about how this just set the stage for them. They did a Twitter hashtag that they continue to use, and they built a visitors center. So they've really connected with people coming in from out of town.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be doing things like that as well in terms of that hashtag and whatnot.
A lot of that planning going on.
Yeah, I like the sound of that, a World Series and a Super Bowl. Yeah. Maybe that will happen
We'd
here.
love to get some of that, at least the World Series.
So what about lessons learned? Was there anything that they said, if we could do it over again, we would do this differently? Yeah,
well, one thing, Minneapolis talked about that visitor center, and they said, you know, had we had to do over again, we would have had that ready before the All-Star Game. They ended up building it after, and the visitor center would have helped them connect more, get contacts for people who came from out of town, and connect them more with activities. So that was one thing. And Kansas City talked about transportation to and from the ballpark and how they could have made that a little bit easier and better, and they actually were able to apply that last year when they hosted the World Series. So a lot of lessons there, and hopefully the Reds will be able to use that for a World Series in times to come.
Yes, using the streetcar for that, since it won't be ready for the All-Star Game.
Yeah.
And then finally, Steve, you did speak to Mayor John Cranley and Reds owner Bob Castellini. What did they have to say about their expectations?
Yeah, John Cranley talked about a few things. He said, for one thing, this is a way to introduce not only the nation and the world to Cincinnati, but also ourselves to the reinvented city with the banks over the Rhine, downtown, all these new developments. So it's a way to get that out there, both nationally and locally. And he also said this is a great way for us to spread the word that it's a great place to raise a family. There's a lot of culture, arts, stadiums, all those kind of things that are great for people. Bob Castellini talked about the history, a lot of generations of Reds fans, and an ability to put the city on a big stage and show it off to the world, and hopefully host that World Series in a few years.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, just a few, about 6-7 weeks until the big
July
game.
14th, so it is coming up soon.
Yeah, and I know Business Courier will be covering this.
Yep. Yeah, we've written a lot, and I'm sure we'll continue to leading up to it.
It's very exciting. Steve, thanks for being here this morning.
Sure, thanks for having me.